right, here we go.
Live.
Amen.
Yeah. Welcome everybody to Good Vibes with the Good Brothers. This is episode 18, I believe.
Yes, the 18th one.
Yep, 18th.
This is it.
We are happy to give you another good vibe session.
This is the one. This is gonna be.
It's gonna be a fire one. We got some celebrity, some work putter ins. You know, some people that put that work in for a long time. You know, and alhamdulillah, we just really excited about this exchange we about to have. Get to know them, and for those who don't know them, you will get to know them better.
Yes.
It's something important that you should know. These are people. They're not just you know, people in the community. They are activists, along with their founding of a camp that changed a lot of our youth lives.
Yes.
A lot of our youth lives for the best of the best, and something that I know my son was a part of. I know my nephew was a part of. My nephews was a part of.
Yeah, all of them.
They, you know, so they raved about it. They had a good time, you know, and it's something that that's needed, especially for, I mean, not I'm saying the boys, especially for our youth in general. So, you know, Halim, you can
yeah, no, alhamdulillah. Well, you already know this is your neighborhood friendly good doc going and chiming in, and yeah, we're excited. We pulled Imam Hanif, and Sister Bayinnah Khalil of Kamp Khalil to come in this week. This is one of the most underrated couples, like in terms of stuff that they don't give enough praise. They don't get enough recognition. And what we want to do on, you know, what we want to do on this show and on this platform is start leveling people up and just put things in front of people. Okay. So I don't want them, even though the accomplishments that they've made from just straight founding a camp and just literally doing it 2 times a year, like every 6 months for like umpteen years, for a number of years. There we go. We was just talking about you.
Yeah,
oh, you a real shake now, Imam. You a real shake, honey. You got the prophet, man. You look like man, like Jesus. Whoa, that's different than the picture.
When he gets mad, he threatens to cut it off. I say, no, whatever it is, I'll fix it. I'll do right.
So we was giving a little intro. We was giving a little intro about the things that you guys have done, and then you can further just further any information, or just give any further details or what have you that you want people to know, because it's really important that people know what you're doing. It's really important that you're not as much of an amazing, and I rave about the quality of Muslim camp that you two run, but you're not just confined to a camp. You do things for youth all year around.
Right.
You do things for youth like all the time. Even when COVID hit, you were doing things virtually. You just whatever you could do. So you're about our Muslim youth. So I met you guys. I met you. It was at the Miriam conference, but I don't remember what year it was. It might have been 17, 18?
Something like that. That sounds
long. It was a few years ago, 17 or 18 or something like that. And I saw them sitting down, and they had the cute, the nice little booth and all that. And I see the cool camp, you see the logo in the background with them. And I was like, man, this look kind of cool. What is this? you know, and I see it's like Kamp Khalil. I was like, well, yo, you know, what's up? How long y'all been doing this? Oh, yeah, we've been doing this. I think by then you had done like 17 camps or something, some crazy something like that. And I was like, what? You know, this is like camp, Muslim camp. She was like, yeah. And I was real. Ever since then, I said, and you guys, the winter one was in Houston, and the summer one was in Florida. And so I said, I'm sending my son. He's gonna be flying down there, you know, to do this. And it's really big because, you know, I've done Muslim camps for decades, into the mid early 90s actually. So since high school, and I have never, and I've seen some decently ran camps that had like big donor grant foundations. We got a Kamp Khalil up here that's gotten some big money, but I've never seen a Muslim camp. Actually a camp. I've never seen a camp as well ran, as family ran, as detailed conference calls, communications, flyers, pick you up from the airport, like just top to bottom. I've never seen anything like Kamp Khalil. I've never seen nothing like it. So the people need to know about it. And this is coming from a self-proclaimed greatest Muslim camper of all time after the Prophet. Okay? So I've done it all. I mean, car bomb. I mean, not car bomb. Stink bombs. Not car bombs. That's Palestine. Toilet tissue. You know, jihad at night. Everything. I mean, just sleeping with one eye open. Just all type of stuff. There's a lot of stories. I've exercised people, having gin problems in camps. I've done it all. I've really done it all, and I've never seen nothing like you guys. So I just want to put that out there. But I would like to, I know you have the thing on the a lot of your organization, but I want to know about you guys more personally, like just your personal works and what you guys have done. So with that, inshallah, Imam Hanif, you just fill in the gaps. That is the sheikh that you. I can't get over your beard. I'm not even looking at your eyes. But yeah, inshallah, give us a little more about you, what you're doing, and then what you're trying to do. Because the people need to see.
So first and foremost, assalamu alaikum. And we're honored and humbled to be a part of this platform this morning. First of all, we'd like to thank Brother Jermaine and Dr. Haleen for allowing us to be on the platform and just kind of share who we are, what we're about, and what we have established and what we will continue to do for not only the Muslim youth, but for the Muslim community and the broader community as we move forward in the next stage of our lives. So first and foremost, we've just celebrated our 21st anniversary. So we've been 21 years, about as long as my beard.
That's pretty long.
That's a billion Muslim years.
I know,
that's 1,307,000 million Muslim.
So we've been married for 21 years. We got married at the ripe age of 19.
19.
We were both workers in the community, so it was just kind of a natural connection. So she was working in Miami, I was working in Kansas City. And we started attending the Muslim youth conferences. And we actually met in 1998 in Atlanta. And then about less than 2 years later, a little over 2 years later, we were married. And so, one of the things that we wanted to establish is just the continuous work that our pioneer generation had done. And we wanted to focus primarily on young people. There was already something that was established for the larger community at large. There was something, as we mentioned, the young adult conferences, but there was nothing there in the teenage organization. And so that's, something that we focus on. And then, from there, we just start to see how the community just kind of started to come together in all three phases. And we're experiencing, major support from, younger generation, middle tier generation, our pioneer generation as well. So it's just a natural progression, in a nutshell. And that's just kind of how we, visualize ourselves being in the community as just workers and developers of young people. So with Kamp Khalil, establishing, our first camp in 2004, and yeah, that was quite some time.
The 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Our first child, he was 2, about to be 2. He just turned 2 that April. Yeah. We had in July of 2004.
Yep. Good. And then, let's just kind of go back a little bit. So again, we got married at 19. So we got married, the spring break of our sophomore year. And so all of the
you were in Kansas.
Yeah, I was in Kansas.
We lived in totally different states.
So we had the quote unquote long distance relationship at first, courting and all of those different things. We can get into that if you so choose.
Oh yeah, black. We go.
Yeah, we trying to dig. That's what we like to do.
Yeah, right. So just all the challenges that come with being a college student, and then couple that with being married. So I transferred from Kansas State University to Florida State University.
And I transferred from FIU in Miami to Florida State University, which is about 8 hours north, but still Florida.
Yep. And so, in the midst of that, we had our son, as you mentioned. He was born in 2002. So at the time, she was studying English education. I was studying sport management. We were taking full loads, working, all the above. So we skip a beat. It was just a continuous progression. So I believe, the last semester before we graduated, I took 17 credit hours. I was working 2 jobs. One was an internship. We had our young son, and I believe both of us got 4.0s that semester. So alhamdulillah, it's been, a very unique journey. I won't say it's, one thing or another, but it was just very unique.
And we shifted. We pivoted because before I got pregnant, we were both in school. We were both working. So once I got pregnant, Hanif was like, how we gonna make sure he get here? How we make sure he make it all the way to the end? So I stopped working, but I kept going to school because he was very supportive. I was very determined, and together with that determination and that support, I said, what I'm not gonna do, Hanif, is not graduate, because our marriage won't survive me not graduating, right? Like, it was that serious to me. I come from a family of people who have upper level degrees, and me not graduating was not an option, and he was supportive of that. So it was like, well, I guess the job is going to go, and I was able and willing and ready to let that go. I hated it anyway, and so we worked together to ensure that we both graduated and that he was able to continue to take care of our family.
Yep.
So and then when did you obviously the things that you've accomplished in just, early years in college and, making those determinations, courting each other, things like that. I'm big about the roots that you come from, because, where did that come from? Or is that something that was instilled by your family? Are your brothers and sisters like that? Are you guys just, unicorns or anomalies? Or is this something that was intentionally, consciously put into you, from the get, so that boom, marriage, boom, degree, job, kid, boom, 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 community. Where did all this come from?
Hanif has a very strong foundation. He's number 8 out of 12 children.
Ooh, that's biblical family.
Yeah. And so his foundation, not only did his mother have 12 children, but that home environment was one that was not riddled with chaos. It wasn't riddled with warfare, feudal warfare. So anytime you're with his family and you're in the company of his family, you're going to feel a sense of calm, of unity, of you're not going to feel traumatized for lack of a better word, right? And there's some people who come from families that are very small and very large, and they can't say the same thing. His family was very family oriented. There's no other word for it. They ate together, they had running jokes together, they supported each other, they were always reminded to be there for each other. My family is a little different. We are a smaller family. I only have one younger sister. And Hanif and I often joke that we were 4 people living under one roof. And that really, in essence, is what it was. Like, I had what I needed. My mom and my dad made sure that I was never neglected, never, without education, food, medical, but in terms of that feeling, that intangible, nurturing, it wasn't there. It wasn't there. There were a lot of things that I didn't get, but there were so many things that I did get. And I think paired with what Hanif got, it's allowed our family to grow and to work so well.
And then, if I may interject, so we both come from a history of people who were workers in the community as well. So my father, at the very young age, he's probably in his early 20s, no older than 22, 23 years old. So one of the jobs that he had in the Nation of Islam, both of my parents, all 4 of our parents, came to the Nation of Islam in the early 70s. So at like 20, 21, 22, my father would drive from Kansas City, which is where I'm from, to Chicago, go pick up the the Muhammad Speaks from Chicago, and then he would take it back to St. Louis, drop it off there. So he had a route from Chicago to St. Louis to Kansas City, going down south to Oklahoma, hitting all of these spots and going all the way to Houston, delivering the Muhammad Speaks. And so my mother, while my father was on the road, she was teaching it wasn't Claire Muhammad schools, but it was University of Al Islam at that particular time. So she was teaching at that particular time, I think may have been my older brother and my older sister at that particular time during this period of time. So as far as, as my parents can go back, since they became Muslim, they were workers. Same thing with Bayinnah and her parents. So we come from parents who were working. They, they established, temples at that particular time. They were part of educating young people. So we didn't come from, an environment where we were like trying to figure it out on our own. Even in the community of Miami, in the community of Kansas City, there were close ties to the Nation of Islam, and there was, brothers and sisters who were working, whether they were in the MGTCC, whether they were in the, the Fruit of Islam, whether they were youth ministers, lieutenants, whatever. They were there, and there's much more that I can go into. I'm sure Bayinnah can as well, about the history of our parents, and then the other brothers and sisters in our community, which we saw just working in the community.
But to continue with what Hanif is basically saying is what we're doing, it wasn't a strain for us. It didn't seem out of the ordinary, right? It wasn't something that we had to, like you said, figure out, right? We were just doing what we saw being done. So, there's a quote that often says, your children don't do what you say, right? They do what you do. And so, we advise our children, but ultimately they're going to repeat the patterns that are comfortable for them.Ey're going to do the things that they saw you doing most often. Hopefully they'll be a better version, right? They won't bring all of the traumas or things that you are still working on. They may bring a little of that, but the goal is for them to take the best of what you've given them and be able to continue and take that to the next step, right? Your ceiling is going to hopefully be their floor. So that's what we're trying to establish with not only Kamp Khalil, but like you mentioned, the other works that we do.
Yeah, so I want to jump in until the point, the purpose of the camp, the deep purpose, regarding, what really drives you to thrive into that and build it up to have the reputation that it has, and describe some of the people that you met, because I know, describe the different backgrounds for you guys, but by you both being, just in the trenches, basically, and you're dealing with different types of people with different backgrounds. How did you guys find a way to learn how to manage people and to build those relationships outside of the camp? Because I know one thing from me and Helene done camps, you build so much type of relationships, and you build relationships outside of these projects to a point where it is a genuine love. And So like explain like how did you get to that point and what consistently motivates y'all?
So just continuing what we were saying, and it ties right into what you're talking about, is that so we're seeds of a bigger garden, right? So the seeds that were planted by our parents was a garden of a community, that across the whole United States of America. So when we came up, we were just like the next generation, and there was many other people just like us. We're not anomalies in that respect, but we were just the ones that decided to do this particular job, right? Or this particular aspect of the community. So when people saw us coming up, it was just natural for them to nurture the seeds that were already developed. So when we would go to, youth conferences and conventions, these were just natural relationships that we built. So our peer level, and I don't want to call out any names because then I'll be excluding, different people. But there was just natural relationships that we built. And so it was easy for us to say, hey, look, this is what we got started, and then once we told people, it was just easy for them to support because this is just what we do, right? Mm-hmm. So we had it from our peer level. And then for the older generation, pioneers, they were just happy to see that some young people were continuing on. And so those relationships just came very organically. They were very natural. And so it was just easy to support. Hey, you guys are doing something for young people. Let me get behind it. Either I have a grandchild, my son or my daughter, my aunt, my niece, my nephew. Somebody has a relationship. So it's easy for us just to kind of tap in. And I'll let Bayinnah kind of continue.
And that's why when we're talking to the youth, we always tell them the importance of building and being a part of a community and part of a womb, and seeing what it is you're passionate about, what you're knowledgeable about, how you can take that and grow, right, from the inside out. So instead of us creating something and say, we're going to separate, right, from that womb that made us, and we're going to go and we're going to make it big out here in the great big world all by ourselves, right? We took what we were given and gave it right back to the community that gave it to us. And so it was basically effortless, because it's like your parents raise you and you make your first $1 million and you give it back to them. What they gonna give you? 2 million, right? Like it automatically grows because you're invested in the community that invested in you. And that's some of the principles and the ideas that we teach every year in our residential camp and throughout our programs throughout the years, our youth to find those things that they've been blessed with, they've been able to develop, and see how they can reinvest it back in their communities and grow it from the inside out.
So not a lot of, you see a number of couples who do great work separately, like on their own, like one's doing one thing, another's doing another thing. And then they're kind of, supporting each other from a certain proximity, a certain.
We're not doing that.
So you see that a lot, like, even in our, in some of our power couples. Okay, what I find pretty unique about you all is that the amount of time actually directly working together on with Kamp Khalil, with the organization. How are you? How do I ask this? How are you able to? Is it always smooth? Because when you're working with your spouse, it's not just business. It's also emotionally based. It's personal. It's romantic. It's sensitive.
Annoying sometimes. Keep it real.
Yeah.
Keep it all.
How do you pull it off? How do you? Because you don't see a lot. There's a lot of power. We had some recent shows and different things like that. And you got a number of power couples that do their things individually on their own. But how have you been able to do this for this long? Like, how do you? How do you do it? Yeah.
So it's very nuanced, to say the least, right? So let me take you back to our college years. So we both worked at this call center called West Teleservices, is what it was called back then. And we worked at the same place. Didn't work out pretty well. You know, going to school, going to work, being at home, starting a new family and everything else. It just didn't work. So I quit. I was just like, nah, I can't do this. It was just too much. But when it comes to Kamp Khalil and our family, it was just, for me, I had a vision, and I'll just put it out there. I had a vision that my family would be the foundational aspect of everything that we do. And so it was, Bayinnah made the choice to be a stay-at-home mom. And so by her being a stay-at-home mom and me being out working and everything else, when Kamp Khalil came about, it was just, it was just a natural progression for, this is a family. This is what our vision is. As far as what we wanted to do in the community, we were much, aligned. That didn't come out right, but we were aligned together, in that particular vision.
And I was an educator. Remember, I went to school for English education. So once again, we weren't stepping outside of our comfort zones, right? We were doing the things that we were comfortable, knowledgeable in, but also things we weren't comfortable in, like planning an entire event. Hanif and I had never planned an entire event from beginning to end. So there were things we did that were natural and comfortable, and there were areas where we had to get on that ledge and just jump, knowing that our parachute was going to open and the support was going to be there. We were going to be okay.
And so with that being the foundational aspect, and with us getting Kamp Khalil to a certain level, now we're starting to branch out and do our kind of individual thing. So the family was just the main thing. That was the foundational piece. That was the building block to everything else. So we made sure that our children were going to be educated a certain way. We didn't have them in public school. We had them in charter school. We made sure that, and so we were very intentional about what we wanted to do. So now it's to the point now that we've built that foundation. So now we're branching out and doing our own thing. So now I'm much more involved in sport management. I'm now much more involved in sports media. And then
I went back into the classroom. So once my daughter started pre-K, I started teaching full time. We still had the camps, but I had my life, like you all were saying, at work. Hanif had his life in his career, and we came together for the camp. We came together for our family. But there were sacrifices made on those beginning years, and sacrifices are still being made now. But we're able to do more. Our capacity is greater because we established, those 17, not even 17, but I think by the time we started doing all things like 10 bricks in. So we're 10 years in with this foundation. And so it was easy to kind of put a brick off to the left, a brick to the right, because you already had 10 bricks up under you.
Yeah. And see, the other part of what you're talking about is, a lot of people don't see how the lamb chops are made, right? So, behind the doors, there's a lot of, tugging and pulling and going back and forth as far as, how we're going to do this. But then, when it comes time to turn the lights on and it's time to, present Kamp Khalil, then it looks, like it's professional. But behind closed doors is where we're, putting all the blood, the sweat, and the tears, the sacrifices, and everything else. And we had, just a very unique, a journey to where we arrived at now. And I'll call it now we're at our second life now to our family and everything else. We have a son that's in college. We have a daughter that'll be in college in the next few years. And so, we're pushing, above and beyond 21 years of marriage. So now we're getting that second breath. So, we're trying to expand business-wise. We're trying to expand in a lot of different ways.
Y'all got somebody in
21 years. Now we're gonna jump into the camp. For 21 years, right?
Ask the question.
And y'all started to look alike. So y'all look alike.
I know they started.
I'm just saying, y'all beautiful, black, lovely couple, and you're still young, so you still got the stuck in. You know what I'm saying? Y'all ain't crippling. You take 21, you think of like old heads. Y'all youngins. You know what I'm saying? Because we are the same age, so we gonna keep that. We keeping that energy. You know what I'm saying? So the maintenance of this. I want to hear from our sister. the maintenance of these 21 years. That's it. It was. And how? Go.
So now I gotta sound like an expert. Hold on. I got it together.
And your mom's wife. And go again.
I think, to be honest with you, leadership. My husband he's the anomaly. So maybe Hanif and I aren't an anomaly, right? Maybe our union is an anomaly. We can give you countless couples who went through the same process we did, got married young, got married through the young adult Muslim community. But my husband, I'm sure every wife may say that about, he's an anomaly. And what he has been able to do with me, and I'm just going to put it out there, he needs a Nobel Peace Prize because I am more than a notion. When I tell you more than a notion, I am more than a notion. And so I love him more each day because of, in spite of me, he loves me anyway. And there are no other ways to say it.
That was healing to hear. Wow. What was the last time you heard? She said her husband's an anomaly.
Period.
Anomaly.
Period. Yes. Period. I told him he's gonna have to kill me to leave me.
Wow, damn. But, 911 moment, but that's okay.
All right. Well,
moving right along.
I would say
really to hear. Wow.
If I could give any advice to how I would have done it differently, we talk about this, amongst ourselves, is therapy is not something that the Black community readily embraces. It's not something to put their children in at an early age. And thankfully, I have been, in the last few years, been in a circle of people that have pushed and encouraged and made therapy real for our family, and it has helped us tremendously. We're always still a work in progress, but I do believe that had Hanif and I, specifically me, I'll speak for myself, gotten the therapy that I needed early on, like prior to us being married, even prior to me being a mother, I think we would have been light years ahead of where you all have already, where you think we are, right? Where we've been able to accomplish. And so I always speak to the importance of that inner work. As I said, we're still a work in progress, but there are a lot of years that Hanif and I put into choosing each other in spite of. So.
Yeah, and listen, she may say that I'm an anomaly or, those type of things. I just try to be me. And that's all I can do. When I get up in the morning, I'm very passionate about just life in general. I'm passionate about my family. I'm passionate about, where I see us leaving a legacy. And I have a vision, for our family. And it's not just a one-sided type of a thing. We consult with each other a great deal. She has buy-in. She has the autonomy to make decisions and things of that nature. But for the most part, you have to be very, very intentional about where you're going as individuals, as family members, and things of that nature. Because if you don't have a purpose or a mission as a man, then you will succumb to some other person's ideas, to what they think you should be doing. So for me, it's always been a work in progress, and it's still a work in progress. I've embraced, therapy. I've embraced, a lot of things I can just honestly say my family didn't do. I was the first person to graduate in 4 years from a major university out of my family. I was the first one to get married young. So I did a lot of firsts, but even though I was the first in doing those things, if it wasn't for my older brothers and sisters and watching, what they did and learning from their mistakes and learning from their successes, I wouldn't be the person who I am. So I'm saying all of that to say that, there's things that happen in your life for a reason, and you have to embrace everything and that makes you who you are. And so you couple that with putting your own remix, in it as well. But then you have to chart a course for yourself and see where you want to go. But the main thing as a man, my advice to any man is to have a purpose and have a mission to what you're doing, and nothing should come above that, that purpose and mission, because a lot of times that's very divine, that Allah has that for you, for your particular purpose. And so you have to really have that close, conscious, relationship with your creator in order to be able to see how those things kind of align.
So you have a camp, and you have a number of young people who are in the teens coming into an age that is not too far off from when you actually got married. And I don't think you just woke up at 19 and said, I'm going to get married right now. I think there was a development. So I'm sure, you got a lot of different attitudes and things about boy-girl interactions, gender relations, how do men and women interact with each other. There's a lot of different angles, a lot of them cultural, under the guise of being Islamic. How do you, or are you intentional about preparing the young people that are entrusted to you for a period of time? How do you prepare them to pull off what perhaps what you have been able to pull off? Or is that something you kind of leave to somebody else?
Right.
I'll let Bayinnah go first, and then I'll come after her.
Okay.
For us, once again, it goes back to the idea of working from the inside out. So oftentimes as Muslims, we put on these guises, like you say, these costumes, the thobe, the kufi, the kimar, right? And we say, we are Muslim. Respect us, we are Muslim, right? And the development is really what happens when no one is watching. So as my husband said at the end of his last response, is having that strong faith in Allah and applying those principles in your everyday life is important. So for us, in terms of our youth, in terms of the way we see those interactions with them, we don't create false barriers at our camp that don't exist in the real world. So in the real world, our children are interacting with males and females. They're hearing and seeing things that are not Islamic. So for us to put them in a bubble and tell them when they get here, pretend you've never seen what you've seen, you've never heard what you heard, you haven't done what you've done, and we're going to make a Muslim out of you, is erroneous, is futile, right? It's no point, because you're not going to accomplish what you really want to do. Instead, when we approach the camp, we never come to our youth with an assumption that they know everything that we knew, or that they know everything they're gonna know. So we approach the camp from a foundational standpoint, right? We assume nothing, we expect everything, and we explicitly teach everything. And so it's not necessarily an Islamic camp, meaning when they come to the camp, they're not learning how to be a better Muslim. Instead, we have a holistic approach where we're teaching them how to be good people, how to interact in business settings, in social settings, right? And we really target their thinking, right? We get them to look at what are the messages that are being put into them 360 days a year, because we get them for 5, right? If they come from one session. What are the messages being put in them? And we pick those apart. We dissect them. We get them to question those that propaganda and those messages that are constantly being pumped into them, and get them to rethink and restructure and see how do they measure up to what Al-Islam is asking of us. How does it compare to the life that we want and the life that we're really seeing? So we can say we want this type of life, but what we're doing every day, is it going to lead to that? What we're seeing every day, does it really lead to that? And getting them to question, okay, what am I going to do today and tomorrow that is going to have to go against the propaganda, the common way of thinking, the common messaging, in order to get the result that is not so common?
Okay. That was a nice answer.
I'm gonna let you dig. I want to dig a little bit more too.
Okay, I mean, if you want to dig, because
because I want to know, right? Because one thing about when you, because we both, again, we all work with youth. We were young before, you know what I'm saying? So we still young, but a lot of times when you're dealing with those, you hear some of the most it's a lot of heartbreak when you're dealing because you build certain relationships with they have embodied or they created a trust with you. A lot of times, we were teenagers before. We don't trust. They don't trust like that, right? And so, especially when they're dealing with a lot. So dealing with that, how did y'all maintain? I mean, because we don't talk about that. Alhamdulillah, that's what me and Doc put this together, but this show together, because we don't the stigma of therapy. But a lot of times, even if we not licensed, we are a lot of these kids therapists, right? And we had to that really had to learn how teach us how to listen. So deal with these different children every single year, and you build some relationships. How did y'all maintain like a certain level of mental wellness within yourself, dealing with so much, because a lot of these kids go through a lot of pain. So how do y'all maintain it? Then try to maintain those relationships, is trying to instill that type of confidence in the kids.
So I'm just gonna keep it real with you. So for us, it's therapeutic for us as well, dealing with young people.
Yes.
And because we were once in their shoes, we were once, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. So that experience that we've gone through ourselves, now we can go back and correct some of the things that we did or some of the things that we didn't have to be able to instill in them. So it's almost like a mercy, and it's a therapy within it, because, okay, we didn't have a roadmap. Second generation Muslims, we didn't have a roadmap. Our parents were learning on the job, right? And so now we were thrust in American society with an Islamic, a moral system, religious system, way of life, lifestyle, however you want to put it. So at the same time, so now you have this train wreck of those two things coming together. And so all of the things that we did, all the successes that we were able to accomplish in our journey, now we can go back and teach it to them. So it's kind of therapeutic for us. And then secondarily, the lifestyle that we live in our home life helps us manage, those situations when we're dealing with young people. So if we're not praying at home, if we're not fasting during the month of Ramadan, if we're not giving in charity, and I mean, real, I'm not just talking the fluffy side of it. Oh, I gave. No, we're praying on time. We're fasting during the month of Ramadan. We're doing those things. So we're living a life of Islam. So it's a natural progression. So we're doing it at home. We're instilling that in our children. So when we get to someone else's child, it's almost like it's just an extension of us teaching our children. It's an extension of how we're living. And so when we're having conversations, and I'll speak specifically for the males, we have an open discussion with our young males about every single thing: pornography, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, rap culture, everything above the sun. We're having those direct conversations because they're not having it with their parents, and for whatever reason, for the most part, they're not having that conversation with their parents. And it's because, just like I can talk to my son about certain things, and then another young Muslim can come and talk to him, and they're going to get a different perspective. Same concept, same moral foundation and everything else, but they're going to just get it from a different perspective. So my point is, when we're talking with the young men, we're being direct, we're being candid, we're using the same language. We're not using vulgarity or anything like that, but we're using the same type of thematic language that they're hearing on a day-to-day basis. So we're talking to them about premarital sex. We're talking to them about, the benefits of getting married. We're talking to them about the mistakes that we've made. So it's open, it's honest, it's, and it's a direct dialogue with them about what is real. Because if they're not hearing it from us, they're hearing it from their friends at school. They're learning it from the celebrity culture. They're learning it from, Instagram and social media and everything else. So we would rather them hear it from us, who have, a grounded Islamic approach to it, versus hearing it from somebody that has no idea of what morals are, or they don't have a mature way of delivering the message.
So he's speaking to transparency. So he is very big about being transparent, being able to give the real picture, because once we said, like we said, coming and putting on a fake front, the kids see right through it. And the number of children that return to our camp is not by accident. They recognize that what they're getting here is something they're not getting anywhere else, and they come back for it every year.
So when you do see certain things like, transparent, whether, whatever you're doing with the kids, whether it's at the camp or some of the other activities or programs or what have you, you've talked about therapy, you've talked about healing and things like that. You've seen, I like to see what you see and how things come out in a camp setting. Because, for example, a lot of young people's coping mechanisms when they're dealing with something that's too much is suicide ideation. Usually people just want to check out. There's a lot of music around suicide ideation anyway. And, the past couple of years, there's been, some young artists who, just kind of prophesize their own death, or, overdose, things like that. And so a lot of, young people, our Muslim youth, kind of look at dealing with problems in that very escapist type of way. You've done this camp for a long period of time. Are you seeing trends? Are you seeing more of something recently than before? Is it just kind of more the same? Is it more sexual now? Is it more, are there just more domestic issues right now? Is it always been that way? What are you seeing?
So let me be clear. I give you some real examples from our experience. We've had camps where students had arrived at camp and they were already pregnant. We've had camps where prior to talking to the campers, our parents will talk to us, and I'll hear about things like sexual abuse that a camper has experienced. Or I hear about a child now being pulled from their home, and they're with some Muslim community member, and the community member sent them off to the camp. We've had experiences with campers who have been stealing, right? Taking things that don't belong to them. So we've heard and we've seen it all. What I do want to be clear about is Kamp Khalil does not advertise or speak to providing clinical, professional help to address the needs of these children. And we've never been, so let's be clear. What we do provide is an environment where they can get something that they may not have gotten before, and they can see that there's a possibility for their life that are not currently part of their reality. So we put them in a company of people who, as Hanif said, have been young adults growing in America, have experienced some of the same things that we don't go in there putting, we don't get too explicit with our life and our experience and making bad seem fair seeming, or we don't go out there and talk about all our indiscretions and be like, yeah, but it was okay, I'm cool, look how it turned out. We don't do what the common society does, where they'll say being a single mother is fine. Look at all these single mothers out there doing big things, and they're creating these basketball players and make it seem like this is something to strive toward. We don't put that false message out there. We're not saying it's not possible. We're not saying that it's not a reality. What we're saying is there is something else. There is something else, and you can achieve it. It has been done. And like I said, the people who come, our team leaders, our volunteers, they are real life examples of people who are successful, who've accomplished things, maintaining their Islamic identity with the traumas and challenges they've had in this American fabric. And that's more real to them and more relatable and more beneficial than anything else we could do. So, yeah.
And so if I may add, so what we have seen as a trend is that there was a closer knit community with the young people that we had initially. Yeah. So you would see, groups of people who knew each other, whether it was just the offshoot of the conventions or the tail end of the conferences. So there was much more of a community feel from that perspective. As we have grown and progressed, we've seen less of that. I mean, to be honest, if you go to the masjid today, there's much less young people from masajid, all over the United States. The masjids are empty and bereft of young people. So what we have to do now is kind of teach or create or put more emphasis on the environment of here's another young person that may be going through the same thing that you're going through. The other thing that we've seen as a trend, of course, is technology. Before, we seen a young person, we will go right up to them and start a conversation, introduce ourselves. This younger generation, oh man, let me get your Snap. Oh, let me follow you on Instagram. It's not like, no,
they don't have no other conversation.
Yeah.
They don't know their name. They don't know how old they are. When we talk to our children that live in our home, we'll be like, oh, you just met so what's their name? I don't know, but I got their Instagram. You just sat next to them for 20 minutes and you don't know their name and how old they are?
We have to teach them what the initial purpose of this was. And that was to communicate with somebody audibly, because you could not, be in their midst, right? So we have to teach the social nuances all over again, how to connect with someone, how to communicate with someone.
Why it's valuable.
Why it's valuable. So nonverbal communication, verbal communication. So we're teaching them all of those nuances because we have to stay current and be very, very aware of what they don't have. The second thing I want to mention real quick is the family structure has changed. So you're seeing a lot of extended families, the grandmother bringing the grandchild, the stepmother bringing, the son or the daughter, the father bringing,
or just a community member bringing
right,
a
or
busload,
absolutely,
of 7-8 kids, and the parents are like, oh, the whole community is going to send them, which is rare, but it's still happening.
So we're dealing with those dynamics of broken homes, single parent led households, and primarily that's because of the mother. So we're dealing with young boys. I think one year we had about 40 something young men, and it used to be the opposite. Where it was majority of female. So now what we're seeing is that single mothers or mothers in general, regardless of their single mothers or not, seeing that it's important to put their young child who's a male in an environment where they can get strong leadership or support with a male face. And the added benefit to that is that we're a married couple this young.
We're young?
Yeah, absolutely, we're young.
Yes, we are.
We absolutely young. So when they see the presentation of Kamp Khalil, they see, okay, you're getting the both dynamics. You're getting female and you're getting the male perspective. So it's not just, somebody else who, decided to start something, which is nothing wrong with that, but seeing a couple who's Muslim, going through the challenges together, it gives an added benefit as well.
So you've been together 21 years. And I was 22, my bad, 22.
No, I said in 10 months, because we courted for 10 months and then we married for 2. I was just being funny. Sorry, Helene, go ahead.
This is a comment here, but I wanted to ask before we start getting into the comments and the interactions. 20-some years, and I know there's a lot of healing, a lot of work, a lot of therapy, a lot of different things. What are you seeing different in our young men and young women now? Why aren't the families, like, what are the attitudes that are coming in? What are some of the mentalities now that are coming in? And these families just can't stay together. The numbers just don't look that good. People, divorcing at high rates and things like that. What do you think is different? What is fundamentally in, men and women's heads right now? And I'm not just talking, you guys got married at 19. I'm talking like 25, 30, 35-year-olds that are still not ready to be married.
Well,
they're still not ready to be with another human being at that level of life. What do you see? You're in the community, and why isn't some of this stuff lasting? What's going on here? Just from your perspective.
So there's the individuals before they become married. There's the individuals coming together as a married couple, and then there's another stage of sustaining marriage. So all three of those stages, if you don't have God consciousness at the root of everything, then you're going to be missing out on the keys and the tools and the resources that will help you through all three of those stages. So let me take you just real quick as a young single male. If I don't have God consciousness, if I don't have God conscious principles working in my life, I'm going to be out of sync with the tools and the resources that's going to help me find a compatible mate that has an Islamic or God conscious foundation. Number two, when you become together with another person, male, female, now you're dealing with somebody else that may have that level of God consciousness, maybe lacking that level of God consciousness, or there's a misalignment altogether between those two. So then you're talking about a different level of tools and resources of getting married. Number three, now you're talking about sustaining and maintaining marriage. What is in your toolbox if you're not practicing on a day-to-day basis, prayer, fasting, remembering Allah and things of that nature? And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's an all-out assault on the institution of marriage. Yes. And if you don't have a strong foundation with tools and resources to combat that environment or the culture that's being permeated, through and through of individualism. I don't need a man. I can get it all by myself. I'm a boss. I'm a queen. I've never heard of a queen without a king.
Ooh.
So the queen, if you don't
have one more time,
Cleopatra, but you know how she was.
If you don't have a king,
she was
how can you be a queen if you don't have a king?
Oh,
my thing is if the culture is dominating with these influences and these pictures and these images, and you don't have any tools or resources in your backpack to combat them, then how are you going to have the proper perspective on how to choose a mate? How are you going to come together with the mate? And then how are you going to sustain your relationship if you don't have those tools and resources in your pocket? There's natural, conflict that you're going to have, regardless of if you lived in a pristine environment, because you're talking about two different people. But what do you do with the other ridiculous extreme cases and warped ideas about male, female, and everything else? How are you going to combat that if you don't have a strong moral foundation and moral principles?
But remember, by saying that, in your mind, you may hear everything I thought was wrong. I have to undo everything I thought before, every message I heard from the women around me, if that was the message they were promoting, right? Every woman I look up to and respect that's not married, right? I'm now having to call into question all of these messages and ask myself, if I undo all of this, what will be left? Will I still recognize myself? Will I still be whole? Will I lose myself, right? And the answer is no. No, because as Hanif said, you're going to produce more. You're going to be more. You're going to create more when you are with a team, a unit, right? You cannot, there's a whole thing now push on social media about I'm self-made, right? I brought it from my bootstraps, right? And I follow a couple people on Instagram and they talk about how false and how erroneous this is. Because even if you are having a business and you're the only person in your business,
somebody help you.
Who's buying your product or service?
Yep.
So if no one is actually buying your product and service,
nothing.
Then you're not in business and therefore you did nothing alone, right? So there's nothing you can look at in creation, in anything that does anything alone. And so these ideas that are being promoted are damaging and they are killing the potential within our children to produce the life that we want from them, for them, and the life that they are going to need for themselves. Because they're having to undo and question everything that's being pushed and fed to them in large amounts. And they're going to have to believe in something that in all honesty, they're seeing very little love, right? And they don't believe that this is actually valuable. Is this really real? Because what I'm seeing is completely opposite. So how can this utopian fake world that you're talking about actually exist? But I'm not seeing it every day.
Speaking of utopia, and that is one thing. I think from a lot of time from Muslims who haven't really, because I'm one of them type. I lived a whole different life than, you know what I'm saying, born and raised Muslim. I'm one of them bad kids, you know what I'm saying? And it was some way worse than me, but I was like middle bad, you feel me? So the thing is that a lot of times when you go into the utopia, a lot of turn off from a lot of the youth, and that's why a lot of the youth is not in the mosques right now because of the Muslim utopia, where they created this atmosphere of a false atmosphere of reality. You know what I'm saying, or a perfect reality, to a point where they think everything is supposed to be just floating prayer rugs and you know what I'm saying, everybody. But the thing about it is that the children, I mean, youth are not idiots, right? Like you wasn't a dummy when you were 13, 14 years old. You knew everything that was going on. A lot of times 8, 9, 10 years old, you knew what was going on, right? And so if you were a cat who grew up in heavy trauma, you seen your mama in and out relationships, daddy in our relationships, you know, we have Muslims who grew up on drugs, all that stuff. And so a lot of times the kids see this, and then at the same time they're telling you do as I say and not as I do. And that turned off a lot of the youth, and that's why it is no kids in the mosque yet, especially you know what I'm saying, that's turning over. And then we try to create different programs to try to create that. So I mean, you are an imam, right? So you have a lot of boulders to carry, you know what I'm saying, and dealing with these different things. Like how do you outside of the camp? How do you reach, because you have to work in the mosque here, how do you apply these things to reach the demographic of those, because it is a missing generation inside the mosque of men. So how do you apply that to bring us type of men to the mosque? I heard y'all popping down to Houston. That's one thing I want to say.
Well, let me first by saying this is number one, we live in a culture that doesn't allow room for mistakes, right? So right now you have the cancel culture. If you say one thing wrong, then it's the end, right? Then you go to the public school system where everyone is expected to have an A, right? There's no, if you get a C, a D, or F, you're considered lower tier.
Pass one test.
You know, if you flunk one test, you know, so we live in a culture, we live in a society that expects you to be perfect. And that's counter to what Allah created us to be. So now we have to instill in our children, it's okay to make mistakes. But in those mistakes, try not to create the same mistake twice. Learn from your mistakes. When we look at Adam as a principle, we see Adam made a mistake. Him and his mate, they made a mistake. But what did they do? They turned back to Allah. So Allah is a forgiving God, and Allah allows us to make mistakes. You learn more by making mistakes than you do by being perfect. Yes. And so a lot of times we have to teach this to our young people, is that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be different. It's okay to be criticized. It's okay to have people say things that may not be warm and fuzzy to you. We grew up playing the dozens. We grew up what we call crowing on each other. We grew up in all those type of environments, but it made us stronger, right?
Now it's bullying.
Yeah, now it's considered bullying. Now, because if you speak your mind or you speak something different, then something is wrong with you. So in a nutshell, what I'm basically saying is this: the utopia is the beauty of making mistakes. The utopia is the beauty and learning as you're going. The beauty is in the struggle. The beauty is overcoming adversity. The beauty is not, well, everything was perfect from day one all the way until where I am today. And so a lot of times when we're looking at other people, we're looking at other mates, we expect them to be perfect. We expect them to
look like their Instagram page.
Exactly.
Right? You're catfish, right? They're creating this image, this identity. They have their online personality, their online persona, and then they have really who they are. And those two aren't matching up. And then our children are doing the same. They're creating their online persona. Oh, this picture didn't get 11 likes. I'm taking it down because everybody didn't like my picture and it looked right. And so they meet you in real life and you don't look like that picture. You don't have any conversation. You know, all those keyboard curves you were typing in them comments and them captions, you can't even say that, you know, in real life because you took 20 minutes to come up with it rather than just saying it at the top of your head.
And the last thing I'll say is this. As imams, as leaders, as influencers in our community, we have to be very, very cautious in how we present al-Islam to our young people. Yes. So the way that we present al-Islam is that there's just one way in order to be a Muslim. So Allah talks about the Sirat al-Mustaqim. That's the only thing that is the one way, and that's just the moral foundation and the moral excellence and the ascension of that in a vertical plane. But there's many paths of service, and there's many paths to get in serving Allah and making a contribution. But the only thing that is unilateral is the way that we have to present ourselves as far as our character and things of that nature. But there's many ways. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter how you talk. None of those things matter as long as your intentions and your actions are aligning with each other. So what I'm saying by this is this. We have a way to present Islam that is very boring. You know, is very, very outdated. And I'm not saying we need a reform movement with Islam.
And Islam doesn't need to be reformed.
It doesn't need to be reformed.
Right. It's just really getting back to the essence of Islam at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
In our current context as it is.
Right. So critical thinking, sciences, you know, culture, business, all of those things. Prophet Muhammad was a businessman. You know, Lady Khadija was a businesswoman. You know, the Arabs invented the algebra and things of that nature. So it took off as being just a movement about religion to really about education and being a good human being, being a contributor and gaining wealth. We don't hear enough about young people. It's okay to be wealthy and be Muslim. It's okay to play basketball and be Muslim. It's okay to sing and be Muslim. It's okay to dress nice and be Muslim.
Exactly.
But the main thing is you just have to be moral. You have to be moral and you have to be modest. And there's a lot of room in this in the broad spectrum of morality and still being able to be unique and be different and still be cool and be Muslim.
And so we've spread out, like Hanif said, we've gone horizontal. So there are ventures that Hanif has gotten into individually. There are ventures that I have gotten into individually, but they're all rooted in that foundation that we established. And they're taking us where we're wanting and needing to go as an individual and as a family and as a community, but it's not unilateral. It's not just, we're just a Muslim couple who has that Muslim camp. We are so much more.
Right. And that's what I'm happy y'all touching on that, because I want the camp is amazing. The camp, I know for a fact, the camp has opened up so many more doors for your endeavors and things like that. And then it just consistently lead, because one thing about working with the youth is that, you know what I'm saying, when the heart is there, Allah's gonna consistently bless you and give you so much. So into that, like you say, Sister Bayinnah, can you like jump in, like what you doing like outside of the camp? You know what I'm saying? Dig a little bit. What are you doing? And let's inspire some of these young ladies out here in these streets who they somebody look up to, for they won't be thinking that they looking up on the Grammys, because you know
that it's important to realize that compromise is never an option. So you're never should be in a position where you're compromising, as Hanif said, your morality. You're never going to compromise, you know, your position and your standing with Allah. Remember, ultimately, you're trying to return to Him pleased and well pleasing. So you can't go back to and be like, oh Allah, I'm pleased. I did what I wanted, the way I wanted, all by myself, with no man. I didn't have to work in the masjid. I just worked in these streets and I got what I wanted. I'm pleased, Allah. He's not going to say, good job fulfilling your appetites and doing what emotionally felt good for you, right? He's going to say, what did you do towards that purpose that you were created for, which was to serve me.
Yes.
Right. So you do multiple things all the time. You walk and chew gum, right? You drive the car and be on your phone when you're not supposed to, right? So you can do the things that are pleasing to you, at the same time be pleasing to your creator. So in terms of me personally, you all already know that I got married young. So that was a conscious choice. That was a decision. I didn't go into it blindly, but as Hanif said, we had a foundation that made that natural to us. We had seen examples of it and we went towards that direction. I stayed home for 9 years with my children. Yeah. And then I went on and taught, and I still teach full time in the public school in Florida. And then we moved to Texas, and I teach full time in the public schools here in Houston, Texas. And more recently, in the last 2 years, I became a wholesale distributor for the True Laundry products. And so you all know this is a Black-owned laundry company.
Yeah, we have.
Muslim-owned, Black-owned. And so I invested along with the support of my husband, because once again, nobody does anything alone. Invested in the product. We went from being just retailers. The idea was to get my children to learn how to make their own money, learn how to communicate with people, and learn how to provide something that is beneficial to the community, a product or a service. And so, of course, laundry detergent is something we all need and we all use. When we talk about economic growth and stability in our community, it's not going to come from selling, and nothing that there's against it, because I got these beautiful earrings from a Muslim female-owned business owner, and that's producing money and revenue in our community. But toothpaste, toilet tissue, these consumers that we use every day, someone else is producing them and creating generational wealth with it, and we're not necessarily doing that as a whole. So we first were just retailers. We only bought what we needed to sell. And after selling over 2,000 units, we moved into 9 retail locations, and we now have 5 individuals who don't have a retail location that they buy from us wholesale price, and they sell it at retail price. So we went from buying it wholesale and selling it retail to buying it wholesale, getting it extra low, but we had to buy a lot more of it. And now the people buy it from us instead of corporate here in Texas, and they then sell it retail as we once did. And we still do retail. Sometimes we'll do events, but mostly we have individuals who sell the product. And then I've also gotten into real estate. We purchased 2 investment properties, and these properties are a part of our family, and we're going to continue to grow and build on those. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to take something that I'm passionate about and that I know, and be able to jump into things that I was not as knowledgeable in, such as retail business.
So there were some good comments about, a little earlier, some reactions about cancel culture. I wanted to highlight what Bilal Mustafa was talking about. Sabrine gave a shout out, and Abdul Jalil gave a shout out, but about cancel culture. And then this thing about, I do want to get a little more into, Bilal said that one of the reasons he believed that young people aren't in the masjid is because they're not seeing somebody young or relevant in their attending the masjid, because there's no young leadership, for them to identify. And one of the things I think about is, and I want to see what you say about this, Imam. One of the things I think about is how imams have held on to their imamship for decades. Because once upon a time, many years ago, they were young, along with their peers and everything like that. So everybody was in and down and whatever. In the 70s, 80s, everybody was 20, 30 something. But then you go another 15, 20, 30 years later, and you're still the imam. And then, that structure usually is very, singular based. Sometimes, a lot of times, there's a board there, but there isn't this culture of developing young leaders.
The board just as old, though.
Yeah, exactly. And the board's just as old too. And there's not this culture of development, of mentorship. And I think, and this is one area I think, I do think Kamp Khalil, addresses, but I've been thinking about this, on my own too, is there is really a severe lack of mentorship culture in our Muslim community, like intentional mentorship. I'm not talking about fly by night, like, hey, you can talk to me whenever you want, it's cool, you're the little homie type of thing. But you have people that are holding on to these leadership positions for a long period of time, and they've just outgrown generations. And the issues and the different things that are spoken about are not relevant anymore. And so people go and talk and do what they feel is relevant. And that's why you don't find anybody under 50, under 40 in this in the masjids right now. If you look at we were at the WD Muhammad convention. Oh God, that must have been about 5-6 years ago, or what have you. The biggest time was at the at the main dinner, that everybody got the tickets for. But if you look at, this used to be a national convention that would sell out the West End. Like, do you understand? Like the Renaissance Center in Detroit, thousands of rooms. Okay, it would sell out. Like downtown would be shut down when it was in the early 90s, and now they don't even have a banquet hall for a national convention. And so I'm wondering what you think, what's happening, what's going on with this whole youth and generational thing, and how leadership and community has been structured and how it's filtering our young people out.
Yeah. So what you're alluding to and what you're explicitly saying is very complex, but at the same time, it's simplistic if we really think about how the problems and the solutions are intertwined. So when you think about the lifespan of a human being, right? You know, you're young, you're vibrant, you have a lot of energy. You go on, you get married, you have children, you teach your son how to become a man, and then so on and so forth, right? So that's the lifestyle as an individual, as a human being. It should be the same type of a life cycle with our communities, right? So what you're seeing is a person who is almost if he's going to just be a father without any children, right? So what you're seeing is, like, when you see the examples of the prophets in the Quran, you see Prophet Ibrahim, when he was communicating with Allah, he said, what about the people that are coming behind me, Allah? He said, I'm going to make you an imam of all the nations, right? But then Ibrahim said, well, what about the ones that are coming behind me? And Allah said, it's okay, Ibrahim, I got that covered too. We got Ismail, we have Ishaq, we have all of these people. So, right, all of these other prophets, may Allah be pleased with all of them. So when we look at the imams, and before I say this is not a criticism. This is just an objective observation of what's happening. And I will tell you, just like Bilal Mustafa and his comments, and you, Dr. Halim, and Brother Jermaine, you as well, there is a lot of our imams who have taught us and encouraged us for the work that we're doing now. And we wouldn't be here without the stewardship of our imams and them not being students of whatever imams or whoever. We wouldn't be where we are, and their leadership and things of that nature. But I think what happens is that in that particular era, that form of leadership was relevant and needed to be happening. But what happened is that our imams, and I'm just going to use it in a collective sense, because there are some imams who have done an excellent job, i.e. Qasim Ahmed, may Allah be pleased with him. He trained Imam, Dr. Imam Wazir Ali, and then Imam Wazir Ali trained another crop of young imams. So we've seen it work in some respects. But for the most part, collectively, we haven't seen that type of growth and development and looking behind for the next generation as far as the mentorship on an intentional way. So what you see is imams who have they have outgrown the culture, right? And so what happens is when you're 60 years old, you're not really in tune with what's going on in today's culture that is relevant. And so when you see that type of lifestyle not being natural, then you're missing a generation in the middle who's supposed to be in that leadership position that still has that touch with the younger generation. And so what happens is we come from a culture that is very imam centric, and the imams are growing in development and developing in their education of the religion and everything else. But where's the contributions from the body of the masajids, to where you're seeing young people go out and make more contributions, and they have a thirst to want to come back and help in the community? So that's a lack of understanding the life cycle of a community, to see that, okay, I've outgrown my position. Now I need to go back and make sure that something is going to be there when I'm gone. And so when you have that, you start seeing, chinks in the armor, gaps in the armor, a flood coming through of cultural influence that is not in tune with the leadership, and the leadership is not in tune with the culture. Not that we say that you need to be wearing gold teeth and having braids and everything else to be an imam, but at the same time, you're supposed to be understanding the threats of the culture and what they represent for our young people. And if you are not in tune with it, then you dang for sure should have developed another young person that has more in tune with the culture.
We had the we at the 120 mark, and alhamdulillah, I want to shout out again our beloved guest, Imam Hanif and Sister Bayinnah, for this incredible story and incredible live. I mean, this one of my favorites so far. Man. And but I also want to shout out to our sponsors.
You better say that while I'm in your face right here.
Yeah, when you go, I'm like, man, she got to work on that. But alhamdulillah.
I'll be ready.
Remind me before we leave, there's one comment that I want to make about the question that was just asked.
Yeah, we just chiming in. We got to shout out our sponsors. Sponsors. Shout out, I know you guys know Browndages, Imam, you don't like to call him Imam, Rashid Makti, and his wife, because I always destroy her name, Istisar. Bashir, they are another dynamic couple. Alhamdulillah, just like yourself. They are the founders of Browndages. They have been a staunch supporter of us since day one. They are one of our sponsors. And also, we got to shout out our man, Ashir Kurt, and Design Pro Web Solutions, which is also a sponsor. And you can reach them both on Instagram at Browndages and on Instagram and on Facebook at Browndages and Design Pro Web Solution. And again, a strong black power, so strong black couple and all that good stuff. So look them up on Instagram and Facebook. If you'd like to be a sponsor of Good Vibes with Good Brothers, inbox us or email us at goodvibesgoodbrothers@gmail.com. And go ahead.
No, I was gonna say quick story about Browndages. So
we have them, by the way.
So I play basketball, right? So a couple of weeks ago, I fell playing basketball indoors. I don't mess with the concrete. So I had a scab on my arm, and so I'm looking for a Band-Aid throughout the house, right? And I said, you know what? Where's those?
Remember when they first had the Band-Aids, they had the little kids on them. Is that the same?
Kids, yep.
So I'm looking for a Band-Aid in our medicine cabinet, and I said, okay, I found something. And so I put the Brownage on my sore. And so when I was walking around the house, and Bayinnah was like, "Look at you, that's so cute. You got the little Brownage in it," even though the sore was bigger than the Band-Aid. That I was supporting.
Cover 25% of that sore.
And their slogan is, "You can't put a Band-Aid on 100 years of racism."
That's right.
That's right. Those racist Band-Aids that I was using didn't do the job.
They didn't look like you. You know what I'm saying?
They didn't look like me at all.
That's right.
They look like Malcolm.
That's right. Alhamdulillah.
So, and I don't want to jump back onto that. Alhamdulillah, that what you were speaking on as far as the transparency, right? A lot of that the missing generation, we was in the street. Like they matter of fact, 35, 40 years old still in the streets. I know, but you know what I'm saying, that cats that haven't made that transition back. Alhamdulillah, Allah allowed me to make a certain transition back. Because I did have mentors and imams who told me, like, this is you the leader of this, you do this, like mentors and like respected imams who told me that. So I had, you know what I'm saying, I had alhamdulillah from my father, may Allah be pleased with him. He you know what I'm saying, he instilled in me something young that eventually I was gonna get it together, right? And so seeing that as an imam, right, and an active imam, and you know what I'm saying, you're a cool guy with a cool vibe, right? And you seeing that whole generation of us in the streets. Our whole generation is in the streets, right? Have you like, what have you done? I know Bilal in here too, so I know he did die with Master. How have you like been able to? Because it's been hard trying to reach some of my cash. You know what I'm saying? I can be 100 deep to go to something that I know for a fact I shouldn't have been in, right? But I can't get 10 cats to come, you know what I'm saying? In a certain peer group I can, but in them cats, what I know for a fact, the intelligence is there. I can't get them like to do nothing. You know what I'm saying? The marsh is full of women. So, and we need them type of cats, right? Because I was one like, we need them type of dudes that had that forethought to just get it out there and get it out the mud. and it's that the whole generation is missing, right? So what have you personally done to try to steer some of those cats in to give them that type of inspiration to know, like, man, like, you know what I'm saying? I try to use my story, but at the same time, like, you got it, right? So how did you use that to try to steer them in to try to come back into the mosque year? Because we need that generation, like we need our generation in the mosque year. We like the trend, we like the transcendent, we like, I'm saying, we like the middle ground of these eras.
Yeah, so for me, it's number one, it's about building relationships, right? And so I know the path and the journey that I lived is different than somebody who may have been really out there in the streets. I was never out there. I saw the streets, but Allah protected me from being in the streets. And so I connected with some brothers who are able to do that particular work. But my work and what I've been able to do, I've been very, very intentional about this. It's really looking at the generation behind me and seeing what is coming about. And so culture is the main thing that I really tried to focus on. And one of the aspects of that was bringing Muslims, celebrities, athletes to our young people. Yes. And I've done some work with Bilal Mustafa. We put on camps with Mahmoud to be able to get the young people to come to the masjid, to come to see that Islam is bigger than just being in the prayer line, fasting during the month of Ramadan in that respect. And so what I focus on now is Crescent Sports Media, and that's bringing conscious people, Muslim athletes, to our young people. So giving them a platform, giving them a voice. Last year during the month of Ramadan, we did an eight episode series of interviewing Muslim athletes who look like us, talk like us, went through Ramadan, fasting, praying, and things of that nature. And so all of these 8 individuals, some male, some of them are female, was just to motivate and inspire our young people to say, look, you're not the only one who is Muslim, who is going through the same things that you're going through. And so, I was able to talk to people like Ifram Salam, who knew as a young child, being the son of an imam, going to the masjid, spending 4 or 5 hours at the masjid and everything else. And now he went on to, play professional football. And now he's a Hollywood producer. He produces films and shows and things of that nature. Came from our community, went to Sister Claire Muhammad's school, had to be waking up by Fajr, had to be scolded about not making wudu correctly, all of these different things, and then you're seeing other people like Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, you're seeing people like Sister Bilqis, you're seeing all of these people who went through the same struggles that we went through as young people, but now they're on the bigger screen. Now they are, social media influencers. They're doing a lot of great things. As a matter of fact, one brother who that I interviewed, Hassan, he is a player development and personal trainer for the Orlando Magic's G League team, and they just won a championship. And so, so seeing people like him, people like Shafi Fields, who's the vice president, executive vice president for team sports for Wasserman, and the work that he's doing, he did over $1 billion in contracts, and he's one of our Muslim brothers. So seeing these different people is inspiring and motivating to the young people to say, look, I don't necessarily have to be an imam in order to make a contribution to the Muslim community.
Yeah.
I can be a journalist, I can be a sports agent, be a personal trainer. We look at people like Preacher Moss, who's funny and he's Muslim. So you're seeing people like Sister Nijla, Qasim Bashir. These are movie directors, telling our stories on the big screen. So there's a lot of people who are influencers in the culture. Now the young people can look up to, and they don't necessarily have to say, I want to be like Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion, so on and so forth.
Yes.
Love it. Well, I'm man. I'm almost out of words. You got so.
Hey, that says a lot.
That says a lot.
And I always got something to say. I always got something to say. No, it's I'm gonna tell you something. It's a blessing to have for people to see in this day and age that a Black Muslim family, we can still do it. We can still get it done. There is attacks at all levels against family units. There is such a push towards individualism, towards not giving a crap about a man or a woman, your own gender. Every time our issue tries to be our issue of the things that have happened to us as Black folks, and in this country pop up, there always has to be a distraction. Out of 8 Asian people got shot up in the massage parlor, and now you got a number of us. Yeah, we enjoying what's right and forbid what's wrong, but I got my opinions about just for
everybody else to keep it a G, man.
Yeah, jumping up.
Saviors of the world is, but nobody wants to help save us.
Exactly. So there's a number of things that have tried to separate and destroy what you two have actually created, and it's not just family. And number one, it's what Hanif said. It's not just spirituality of God consciousness. It's not just family, but you're educationally and economically minded and community minded. Like literally at these different levels, there are literal like anti-attack, like anti-family movements. Like you do not need a man. Like, and that is, like you don't need to worry about your community. You don't need to. We're all human. We're all a spectrum of gender, a spectrum of sexuality now. We're all like, no, it's real billions of dollars being put to think this way. Do you know what I'm saying? So,
and Dr. Halim, let me just jump in real quick. I have to say this, and this is very important. When we think about our community and where we're weak in, we know it's strategically done. But let me be very, very focused on what I'm getting ready to say. Without strong men in our community, men who are in their natural roles as leaders and providers and maintainers, we will constantly be threatened as a community. So, my dear sisters,
bingo.
Anytime you feel like you need to be in front of your man, now you can still do your work. You can still be
it needs to be said. Say it all the way with the vocals, with the weird and the vocals.
When you perform salat, there's not a Muslim sister that is leading you in salat. That is the reason for that. So if something goes down in your house, a man needs to take care of that issue, right? So, my dear sisters, you can be your queen. You can have your queen status, but you have to have that king.
You ain't a queen.
If you don't have a man in front of you, it weakens our position.
Yes.
And not to absolve any of the brothers from their inability to do what they need to do, but you as a Muslim sister have to follow a morally grounded, a morally principled man. Above his money, above his looks, above all of that, you have to follow.
Hanif, I can't find a man. They aren't out there. They're all dogs and dirtbags. Every time I try and find one, they're all liars and cheaters.
They're all dirtbags and broke.
And they broke and they play PS5s on the couch. Where are they? These good men you're talking about don't exist.
You find what you attract. You want to be in an environment.
You telling me the sisters are attractive? What? Is this the queen saying that? Oh, wow.
Listen, when I tell you Hanif has been putting in the work, and I am so grateful. There is a permeating ideology that I am not absolved of, right? I hold some of that way of thinking, and it's because of Hanif's patience and understanding and his willingness to not give up on what he values, which is family and community and morality, that he didn't allow me to become to get pulled, because I'm human too. I'm a female too. I'm a Black American female too. We had a Black American mom, we had a Black right. So I'm working with those same paradigms that are challenging a lot of our community. And so what the reality is place yourself in environments where you will be in the company of and surrounded by that which you seek, and strive to become worthy of that which you seek. So if there's a certain type of man you're looking for, there's a certain type of woman he's looking for. And if you are not looking to be that type of woman, you're not going to attract that type of man.
Oh.
Now keep in mind, I did get married at 19. So all my friends who are single, right, who are in their 20s, in their 30s, even those who've been married and may still be married and not be married. And my husband often tells me, right, my perspective is going to be different, right, because I'm not out there in the market right now getting married. But the advice is still valid, even though I have a husband, and yes, I got him at 19. The advice is still valid. When I found him, I didn't find him in an environment that wasn't Islamic. I didn't go looking for him, you know, in some environment that wasn't the type of environment I saw myself living in the future. I sought him in an environment with other young Muslims seeking young, morally upright Muslims. And Allah really did 90% of the work. Let me just stop right there.
And if I can add another thing to this, because we can easily, subtly be programmed into thinking that what we're doing is the right thing. Because as Allah says in the Quran, and it's not wrong, but he can make certain things alluring to us and we may not understand the nuances. So I don't care. I'm just going to say what I got to say. So Goldman Sachs just put out a fund that's going to give $10 billion to African-American minority women, right? No, nothing wrong with that if you're just looking at it objectively. But what does that do to the African-American male when there's $10 billion that is geared towards women? This says to me a high level of social welfare, because back in the 70s, the only way you were able to get money from the government, even though you were struggling, is that the man could not be at home. So we may look at that as this, yes, women have been oppressed and women have been oppressed and they're still going to be oppressed in certain ways, right? But at the same time, if the man who is more responsible to provide and maintain had more access to money, then the women wouldn't be in the situation that they were in. And there's still room for women to get what is rightfully theirs. A Muslim woman, her money is her money. But at the same time, if the man is called upon to be the provider and the maintainer, then it looks like that somebody is trying to put one over the other intentionally and strategically. And it's not just now. This has been going on for a long time. You don't see African-American male grants for businesses. You see minority women-owned business and things of that nature. So there's something wrong with that. You know, because black men, yes, black men are incarcerated, undereducated, things of that nature. So why wouldn't they be the ones who will be the beneficiaries of making up for the lost causes and things of that nature? We have brothers that have been in prison and destroyed families, you know, for many reasons and things that we don't have time to get into. But my main thing is we have to watch what is being presented to us and not fall for it hook, line, and sinker every single time. Get your money. I'm not saying don't get your money. Get your money. But at the same time, don't let it be in spite of a man not getting his as well.
And the same can be true for the Black Lives Matter movement. You know, Hanif brought to our attention when he looked up, you know, because I never thought to do it. But that movement is getting funding, it's getting propaganda, all on the idea that it's going to elevate and bring light to the traumas and the injustices that are being inflicted on Black people. But if you go to that website and look at their mission and vision, it has now turned into a LGBTQ2. Is that in the
ABCDFG? Yes.
Okay, organization, right? So it's like anything that will essentially bring attention to and elevate the status of African American men first, and then subsequently will trickle down to our families and our women and our children and our communities. When we see our men in leadership, I mean, They'll be more respected in our society. We'll be more respected of them. But is that really the agenda? Is that really what the American society is trying to do? Are they really trying to elevate the Black community? Has that ever been on the agenda? No. And so Black Lives Matter movement is no different than the funding that's coming down for this COVID. Nothing is designed to specifically benefit the people who really need it the most, which is why they're replacing the word minority, African American with minority. And if you say Black, someone from Nigeria is Black, someone from Puerto Rico is Black. They haven't experienced what the descendant of the African slave has experienced. So until what they are providing is specifically for the descendant of the African American who was enslaved in this country, came from royalty, came from male leadership, came from religion and everything that we already had. Until they say we're going to address what we did to that community, we're not going to see any real change and any real growth, which is why the work that we're doing with the camp, with Crescent Sports Media, with the True, with the Buying the Properties is so important, is because we're saying, and that Kamp Khalil literally was funded and supported by us for us.
Speak on it.
That is why we love it. And it will continue, inshallah, long after we leave. As Hanif said, our goal is to train and prepare people that when we're long gone, we won't have, that's why I feel like our camp has been successful, why people love it, and why I've been able to go into other things, is because it's never been about us. It never was started so that we could get off on ourselves. It was, what can we do so that we can give back to what we were given and grow? So once again, as Hanif said, we need to look at the structures and systems that are in place that are not designed to put our male leadership in the front, and anything that's doing anything contradictory to putting our male leadership in the front, we need to question it. I know what my last thing is going to be. We always tell our children at home, never in the history of media and propaganda and in this industry has the truth led. What bleeds, leads. Yep. Not what's true, not what's accurate, not what's been researched, not what's going to be beneficial to everyone. It's how can we sway public opinion, usually for capital gain. And so if we can teach all of our children to look at what is being put out there, even if it's under the guise of something positive and empowering and beneficial, we need to peel back everything. Believe nothing without due diligence and research, and without putting it next to the Quran, putting it next to the practice of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? Putting it against things that are tried and true, not experimental, not a conditionary, right? Acceptance, right? Something that has been proven that is going to lead to success and growth. And so one of the last things that I wanted to say about that is, oftentimes where we are, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, but we're gonna stay on that because when we have to watch about the 1:45, so we're gonna have to close in a minute. But I want to stay on this because of anybody got questions in the comments, please we can post it. But also I want to say is that frame of thought, now they trying to say the nuclear family, or that train of thought is what they say, what's the word I'm trying to say? It's old, you know what I'm saying? The old frame of thought,
I'm sorry, Jermaine.
Yeah, go ahead.
I always tell my children, look at actually Hanif and I talk about this with our kids. We have family discussions regularly that Hanif leads over dinner and other times after prayer times with our children. But one of the things we talk about is life post-slavery. So if you have these people that are indigenous to the continent of Africa, and some that were already indigenous here, Native Americans, right? And these people are the bloodline. They created the society that we currently have. And when you dismantle one system of slavery, we all know about the 13th Amendment and how this allows slavery to continue through the prison system. But if you look about all this skilled labor and all of the work that we were able to produce post-slavery in our own circle, because they don't want to mix with us, they don't want to get in that pool and let that melanin float and permeate into them, which probably would have benefited them, but I'm going to stop.
Right.
If we look at post-slavery and all of this skill and training and everything we are, and we kept it to ourselves, and we flourished and we grew, no wonder they wanted to desegregate.
Yes.
So I'm not in the Nation of Islam, but I'm in the Nation of Islam in terms of the belief that we are everything we need. No one is going to come save us. If you're not able and willing to love yourself enough to save yourself, anybody on the TV and media who says they're saving you and they're going to provide this vaccine and they're going to do this, that, and the other, that is going to be better than a strong immune system, that's going to be better than you developing yourself from the inside out, question everything.
It comes with something. And I really, that's what I'm saying. Like the old fashioned, they try to say that type of frame of mind, right? And the things about it, and we see that we don't have those type of like, let's say the white community. We don't have that type of leeway to act the fool like they act the fool, right? You know what I'm saying? And everything that happens to us when we try to go and emulate them, it becomes an epidemic in our community every single time, right? And so we seeing that with just the, like a lot of times we grew up in hip hop, you know what I'm saying? We grew up in different industry around different areas where we know a lot of times we went from survival. Now our survival is being marketed, right? Our language is being marketed. Just the things that we knew, like we already knew what was going on, but now it's more broad. Now it's more broadcast to a point of being accepted. It was, you know, not really swept under the rug, but it wasn't really put out there like that as normalized, right? And the things that they was doing generationally, like not generationally, but their whole existence been normalized as far as just this disrespect and dishonorable ways of life according to their own religions, right? So the thing is that how are we going to counter? Because again, some of us had to learn the hard way. We had to find out ways to know, like, okay, yeah, the Sunnah is the way. You know what I'm saying? And being born and raised Muslim, some of us, we had to learn this deen for ourselves. Like we had to truly be like, man, this is for me. Because you know, a lot of us grew up in situations where it wasn't like that. It wasn't really popping like that. Like it was like just fake, right? So now, like we see, like, and we know that the Sunnah is the most. It's easy. One, it's easy. You know what I'm saying? It's not that hard that we try to make it. Two, that the Sunnah is the way that it's sustainable to a point where our communities flourish when we practice this, you know what I'm saying, the sustainability of doing what we're supposed to do. So how do we counteract this mind state of being old-fashioned and not into with the norms, knowing that these things are consistently plaguing our community, and we can't be feminists like they can be feminists, right? You know what I'm saying? we can't be that, right? So give us a framework on how it could make, because again, you guys been together 21. All right, what's going on? You got 21 years, so you've seen so much through your time together. Give us a framework on how to be consistent in that nature of building amongst each other, because I do come from a nation, you know what I'm saying, and I come from all the different types of movements that our people have been, and I've seen the good and the bad. And one thing about being from the nation is the knowing the value of knowledge itself. So, give us a framework on how to counteract this old-fashioned theory they try to throw at us, and just being an absolute fool is the cool thing now.
Well, see, here's the thing: when you mention the Nation of Islam, people have really belittled the efforts of the Nation of Islam. So all of the movements that really have carried us to prominence and to major accomplishments have always been spiritual movements.
Yep.
Something that had God consciousness at its core, right? So the Nation of Islam was the culture. James Brown, Sam Cooke, Muhammad Ali, all of these influential people were inspired or motivated or
James, yep.
Yes. Yeah. They were all inspired by the message that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam presented to African Americans in that particular time. So what came out of that? Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Imam Muhammad, Louis Farrakhan, and things of that nature. Now, what does that look like 15, 20, 30 years from then? Hip hop in itself was influenced by those people who were influenced by Malcolm X. So consciousness was a part of the culture. So the Nation of Islam was the culture. To be clean, to be morally upright, to be educated, to be dignified, to be honorable, all of those different things led us to prominence in America. And we were on a trajectory to be very, very, very well situated until government influence came in, the welfare programs, state, inspired, programs and things of that nature. So when you look at people like Public Enemy, you look at people like KRS-One, Rakim, and all of these, the pioneers of the hip hop movement, those people were inspired by the language of the Nation of Islam. So when you look at conscious hip hop, that came before gangster rap. That came before what you say in R&B. That came before all of the stuff that we're seeing now in the culture. So what you're saying is basically the essence of a moral movement can transcend over anything that can be destructive or corrupt or corroded in culture. So the thing with us as African Americans, we got away from what our secret sauce was, and that is moral consciousness. That is spirituality, above materialism, above emulating what other people, have thrown on us and told us what was successful. We can go into the secret meetings that they had to push gangster rap over conscious rap. We can look at the rappers who were basically canceled and blackballed from the industry because they were teaching consciousness and things of that nature. When women, the female MCs like Sister Soldier and MC Light and everything else, they wasn't projecting their bodies like you see Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B. That was not the culture. It was more about their intelligence and how they can hold their own against male MCs and things of that nature.
It wasn't the norm of the culture. We had those wild ones back in the day, but they weren't the norm.
Absolutely. So like 2 Live Crew and 95 South and all of this, before they came and were thrown and thrusted upon us and used by the propaganda machine to say that this is the reality of African Americans and would cause us to be threatened, like gangster rap, NWA, Boys in the Hood, all of those images. That was a part of our community, but what spurred that? The crack and heroin.
Yes. Yep.
So none of this stuff was something that we did to ourselves, so to speak. It was introduced to us as a lifestyle that can get us out of poverty, but it also had something else that was very potent that came along with it. So the long-term struggle of morality, moral principles, and everything else is a longer achievement process to get you to the destination. But here comes outside influences that will harm us from the outside in.
Yes. Alhamdulillah, man, this has been absolutely amazing. Amazing.
Come on.
I hope that we know when the reach
there. Have to tell me to leave me.
What you say?
What you say?
That's why he'll have to kill me to leave me.
Oh. Another 911 moment.
That's the second time you said this.
Yeah, 911 moment.
I have to throw this in. Although I'm on loan with her, I belong to Allah.
You might go back to Allah. If you try to leave her, you might go back to Allah.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, just stay.
Might be real close to Allah.
Expand.
Just stick with it and make it happen. So man. We got the club, man. I'm sad about it, but this has been man, another monumental conversation that we had with 2 extremely important people in our community. Go ahead.
One more thing, shameless plugs. Khalil Texas True.
Yeah,
you can find us.
Yeah, it says here. So let's start off with our Instagram and our website.
KampKhalil.org. You can find us there. Khalil Texas True. Go ahead.
Yeah, KhalilTexasTrue.com is going to be your host of for the truth. Khalil.org. All of our social media handles are exactly that. Kamp Khalil, Khalil Texas True, and
Crescent Sports Media.
.com.
Yep, them plugs. Yep.
Them plugs in.
Kamp Khalil with a K. Kamp Khalil with a K. Everybody.
Right.
Kamp Khalil.
And it's for us, by us. So that's another example of we support each other. Stop spreading the myths that black people don't support black people, because that's how we get by with each other. So again, stop buying into these whack narratives. You know what I'm saying? So alhamdulillah for that. Another thing, I'm proud of the work y'all put in. I'm proud to get to know y'all. This is my first time. My son been down there and did the camp with y'all, but this is my first time getting to know y'all. And I'm seeing like I've known y'all forever. That's why we doing the good vibes. You know what I'm saying? We just vibe out and just build. And we like to get to the real and the meat and the crystal of these conversations and let people know that the human side, you know what I'm saying, behind the scene and see these personalities. So I'm proud of this and I'm proud of this conversation. And you know, this is something that I think once the people see it and everybody get it out there, they're gonna jump on it and like, okay, yes, this is what's up right here. And y'all was speaking that real, talking that knowledge, and we appreciate y'all for coming on. Again, before we leave out, we gotta always have a good word with the good doc. But before we go into that, do y'all have anything y'all want to share before we go to the good word, the good doc? You did the shameless plug, but anything else y'all want to share before we
We are gearing up, inshallah, based on the feedback from our community for our 18th annual summer session. Don't get excited, Alan. You're too old.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. I just wanted to fly down there. Just, bring somebody. Bring Issa.
July 7th through the 11th, and that's going to be based on the response and feedback that we get. A survey is going to go out tomorrow. It's 5 questions. And based on the responses to those questions and the registrations, we'll need to get at least 32 youth registered, 4 team leaders, and 5 volunteers. And we'll have to have those secured by May 1st, or we will not be able to proceed with our contract with the facility, because we just can't risk that, we make the plans and our families aren't prepared and ready. And we move with our community. So when the community is ready, we will appear, and until they're ready, we'll continue doing our work online. We'll continue doing our work online
and offline.
Thank you, until we're able. So follow our social media, go to our website tomorrow. It's not up now. Go up to our website tomorrow, and you will click on a flyer and it'll have a survey. So when we hear from you all and we get the number of registrants we need, we'll proceed July 7th through the 11th with our 18th annual summer session.
Wait. Hold on. Now, what's the ages? What's the age?
The ages are 12 to 17, but I saw Rashid. Yeah. I see that hand moving. Yeah, we have to talk to Rashid.
And you're saying this is a in-person physical, Muslim camp.
If the community wants
if the response is there,
and if the protocols are in order for us to be
able y'all playing. Yeah, I hope y'all see that. I hope y'all signing up. I hope the number.
If the protocol allows us to have it, we will do our best.
Okay. I'm gonna say Issa turn about 12, 13 this year. I'm feeling. So yeah.
So he's 9.
He's 10, but I'm gonna say he'll be 11 in June, so that's like 12 in Muslim years. All right. So anyway,
thank you so much for having us and inviting us, and we appreciate you all.
Yeah, I mean. So Rashid said he's gonna be a counselor down there.
That makes cool, I can bring my 2-year-old.
Yeah, I can bring.
You can register now on the website. The survey is not up yet, but the registration form is open. The payment options are open. The team leader volunteer forms are all open.
Y'all better.
It will be up tomorrow.
Y'all better go to this camp, man. I wish I had a kid old enough. So, all right. So what we doing? We got this.
It's your turn.
It's my time. All right. Let's do this. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. May Allah send the blessings on our Prophet and his companions and everybody who follows them. So we're looking like time. Oh, we passed the time now. Okay, dang. All right. Let's start here. The word that Allah used for Prophet Abraham was Khalil. He said that Prophet Abraham, he called him Khalil Allah, Khalilullah. And what that means is it's someone who is very close and intertwined, not just physically, metaphysically, but in relationship. It's something that's very, very close. And so when I see when I see what this camp, when I see what Hanif, Imam Hanif, and Sister Bayinnah were able to accomplish, and it takes hard work, and most people don't make it that long. Most people don't go that type of distance, even if you want to, because you need a team. All right. Most people do not make it there, but what it does need for that to be accomplished is a closeness in relationship, but a closeness in vision. It has to be a closeness in vision and what you're able to sacrifice. And then you can be able to platform and do everything that you need to do. The thing that I heard and the thing that was most impressive to me, and probably, I'm just going to say it, probably one of my favorite moments, top one or two moments, was the reverence that that Bayinnah showed for her husband. Was that moment when she said that, this dude's an anomaly. I mean, Malika said something on the chat too, but you could tell I was coming, you could tell I was coming from the heart. And so we have a lot of young men. We have a number of young men who watch this show, who follow us and look and everything like that. Okay. And it's just like Hanif says, do you have to put a spell on somebody? Do you have to do this or manipulate or do that to get somebody to think or feel that way about you? No. What did he say right after that? He said, I'm just trying to be myself and do what I believe my Lord's, telling me to do, fulfill the purpose and the vision. And this is what we're trying to put out. Because I'm telling you, brothers, at the end of the day, you could have models as thick as old bricks on Instagram. But when you at the end of the day, when you're trying to do something, when you're trying to have some peace in your heart, when you're trying to do something for your people and for your community, okay, you got to have somebody to back you up. I'm not great at chess, but I play a little chess. I'm better than the average person, but not better than the average real chess player. There is no queen. No, I'm actually I can beat most people. There's no queen without a king. Okay, the way it plays, the queen, to checkmate anybody, the queen needs some help just to checkmate a king. The queen can't move right next to the king because the king can gobble it up, even though the king can't move like a queen does. So this idea that you can be this independent queen on your own individual utopic island is the work of the white woman and the white man to take your family and your people away from each other. Have you hate each other? Have you despise each other? And then they come around and swoop and take whatever they want to take from you all the time. All the time. These movements, these things like that. How in the next day after George Floyd gets his neck stomped in, how in the next day, within 24 hours, everything has BLM flags? I mean, literally 24 hours. I'm talking down to the Madden games, the library, like everywhere you're turning. It's because it was already part of an agenda to put out a certain acceptable type of blackness that incorporates white liberalism, that incorporates gender ambiguity, sexual ambiguity, spiritual ambiguity. This is why. And I am telling you, as Hanif said and alluded to, I am telling you, the only hope, the only consciousness to get this country, to get this nation back to what it originally was, is the black man. It is the black man backed by our queen, backed by a black woman. That is it. That is it. That's why they're trying to make us gay, to make us hypersexualized, to make us sleep with every dang old thing, $50,000 a month child support, baby mom, everything. That is why. Because they know inside of us, since we got off that dang old boat and started picking cotton, they knew that what we had and what we stood for would abolish any of their satanic plans of accumulation of wealth, individualism, oppression, tyranny, or what have you. It is the black man. It is the black man through and through. That's why all these programs, all these different things go to black women, go to white women, go to all these different people who can easily, over time, be bent and molded towards something else, because there is no king and you think you're a queen. You think that because they understand and know that to preserve her children, to preserve family, that they understand that a woman will make certain sacrifices and break and do certain things. That white man understands that. But they also understand that a real black man will give it all up for God. And a man that fears Allah doesn't have a price tag. Even with the threat of his family, even with the threat of his children, even with the threat of his community. A real one does. And there is no other population. There is no other population that has that, like in this country, in this society, like a morally conscious, spiritual, grounded black Muslim man. Point blank. Point blank. And if you can't find one, then there isn't one in your heart. Because you are what you project, as Bayinnah said. If you only see negativity and hatred if you only see negativity, hatred, and just being underachieved, being belittled, being low, always slighting, always disrespecting, always marginalizing a black man, always marginalizing a dad, talking crap in front of him, in front of his children, making him feel low, making him feel a certain way. If this is what we do and we glorify, then how are you going to find somebody good? How are you going to find somebody good if you don't even see good in what you're trying to find? You don't even see good in the black man. You think everybody's lying. So you create your own self-fulfilling prophecy. You think everybody's a liar. You keep badgering and acting as if somebody's a liar. They keep something from you because they're actually distant. They're actually trying to step away from your drama. And then you see a lie in it. And then you say, ha, see, you're a liar. Ha, see, you ain't nothing. Ha, see, you ain't crap. You've created your own self-fulfilling prophecy. So what you two have, what the Khalils have been able to accomplish at different levels that we talked about, it can be done. And guess what? You didn't have to go. They didn't have to go overseas and kick around a ton of sand and memorize 15,000 books about Islam to do it. It was elbow grease. It was a good community. It was some morals and some will and some intention to do it. That's what it takes. And inshallah, God willing, may Allah continue to bless this family. And inshallah, God willing, this will sustain itself further. So that's what it is. That's what it was. And that's what it's going to be. So God willing, inshallah, I hope and pray there's more and more and more that come from this family. I need to elevate. I need to make my kids a little older or something to, bring them down there.
They're taking
that's with the papers, the vaccine, something. I got to do something. So,
2-year-old is the limit.
Yeah, I'm making 2-year-old.
Y'all got that nutrient spirit in y'all.
Oh man.
So I'll be like, again, thank y'all again for coming on the Good Vibes of Good Brothers. Please get the word out there to those who are not up on us. A Facebook page, Good Vibes of the Good Brothers. YouTube, please subscribe to your Good Vibes of Good Brothers. Again, for people looking to be sponsors on the show, reach out to us at goodvibesgoodbrothers@gmail.com, or you can inbox us Y'all gonna look out for Kamp Khalil again and support all their endeavors. Again, the sports management. He got True. I mean, they got so much going on. I can't remember. So just wind it back and catch up on it, and then put it together and support everything they doing for us by us. Go ahead, Mario. What do you say?
Last thing, yeah. So my face, Allah has blessed me with face that can grow beards. So what I do is once I shave this one off, I send it to needy brothers who can't grow beards, and so then my face can grow another one. So got beards for sales too.
Oh man, look at the ultimate hustler. That's what I like. Hero, AK.
You really sell your beard?
BalalianBeards.com. Yeah,
man, so, I have never seen a hustle man.
You got to have hustles in many areas. You know
what? I might get because I've been trying.
Yeah, my face is very firm. You know what I'm saying? So what I can do is I could just shave this off.
Oh man, I might, but I mean, I need,
Balalian Beards.
Balalian Beards. Hold on, let me see. BalalianBeards.com.
Okay. Like, click, Amazon.
Balalian Beards. I've never seen nothing like that. You're right. I could be a shake for real by tomorrow.
That's what's up. So, you give us Imam Hanif. We don't normally do it, but you are an Imam. We like to pay our respects to our leaders. So, give us a nice closing, do our Fatiha before we leave, and let everybody be on our merry way.
I'm gonna be very, very short and sweet. I don't have one of them, Tarawih. You know what I'm saying? Long du'as to keep everybody here until Fajr. So I'm gonna go a little something like this. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Our Lord, give us the good and most excellent in this life, the good and most excellent in the next life, and save us from the punishment of the hellfire, led by our own desires. Amen.
Amen. Jazakallah khair, everybody. Inshallah, we'll see y'all next time. Good vibes and good brothers, and we are out.
All right. Salam alaikum. I'll see y'all in July with my 12-year-old. Salam alaikum.
2-year-old.